I thought, this is it. This is the big one. This is the love of my life, the one I've been waiting for. It was more chemistry and more magical than anything I'd ever experienced before. And for a while, it was amazing. But fast forward 18 months, on New Year's Eve, I was stood in the kitchen in tears in front of her, saying, I just want to be able to love you. Have you ever been in a relationship where you just feel like you're constantly pouring your whole heart in, and yet the other person just feels like they're pulling away? And then, after you break up, they start reaching out more than ever, leaving you wondering, maybe they did care the whole time. Well, that's what it's like being in love with someone who has avoidant attachment. Today, I want to walk you through exactly what the relationship and then the breakup can look like, end to end. Because once you see the pattern, it all starts to make sense. And more importantly, it'll help you to heal. At the start, avoidant relationships can feel like magic. There's a spark, an intensity, and sometimes it feels like you found just the person that you've been looking for. I remember those first moments, grabbing a coffee with my ex outside her office, sitting on a bench in the sunshine and telling her I had this incredibly strong feeling. She was visibly shaking, like nobody had ever said that to her before. And that's the paradox of avoidance. They crave love just as much as everyone else, perhaps more so, but it overwhelms them the first moment they feel it's real. As the relationship deepens, the avoidant cycle inevitably starts. Communication drops, intimacy fades, arguments start appearing out of nowhere. And it's not because they don't care, it's because the closeness feels threatening to them. For an avoidant, love equals danger, so the more you pursue, the more they start to retreat. And if you're anxiously attached like me, what do? You try harder. You ask. You fix, or at least you try to. You repair. You carry all the emotional labor. And the harder you try, the more it proves their fears true, that closeness will swallow them whole. When the relationship ends, something strange happens. Avoidants rarely chase. They don't fall apart at the door. They don't cry and they don't beg. When I left, she didn't fight me on it. She even said that we could stay friends and perhaps I could still visit from time to time. And it's not because she didn't care. It's because avoidants are masters of shutting their feelings down in the moment. It's armour. If they let themselves feel the loss right there and then, it would break them. So they don't. They freeze instead. But then, weeks, months, or sometimes even years later, they come back. Not asking for a relationship, but suddenly reaching out more than they ever did while you were together. She was texting me in the mornings, starting conversations, engaging with me more than she ever had in months. And it was confusing. It made me question if I'd been completely imagining the distance between us. But here's the truth. Avoidants often miss you far more when you're gone than when you were right beside them. Distance feels safe. Longing feels manageable. It's the closeness that feels unbearable. Until eventually the messages taper off. You get archived, unread, pushed to the background. Not because they don't care, but because they can't sit in grief. And ignoring is easier than feeling. I even sent little olive branches, a small text saying happy birthday, just checking in. Sometimes she read them, sometimes not. And every time I felt the same ache. She said she wanted friendship, but she really couldn't offer it. And that's another avoidant truth. They often offer friendship at the end because it feels safer than goodbye. But the reality almost never matches the words. And then, just when you think it's all over, they'll reach out again. But not about the relationship. It'll be about something safe. In my case, it was half a year later. A request to do some work that we talked about ages ago for her job. She couldn't say, I miss you, but she could say, can you do this job still? It's closeness disguised as practicality. A way to keep you in orbit without risking intimacy. So why do avoidants do this? Well, as with everything, it goes back to childhood. Many avoidants were raised in environments where their needs just weren't met. They were sometimes ignored, sometimes shamed, sometimes overshadowed by their parents' choices. They learned, if I show my needs, I'll be hurt. And if I get too close, I'll be abandoned. So they build their lives around independence, control, and distance. But the truth is, the love is there, in their heart. They just don't know how to let it out. That's why it's so contradictory. Cold when you're close, longing when you're gone. It's not manipulation, it's a survival strategy. The only one they trust. And this is the saddest part. Avoidant people often live with love in their heart that they cannot allow to escape. They want connection, they dream of it, they feel it in flashes. But when it arrives, they can't sustain it. So they push it away, and then they grieve later, much later, alone. And the partners that love them are left carrying the beauty and the loss. If you've loved an avoidant, here's what you need to know. Their silence doesn't mean that you weren't loved. And their withdrawal doesn't mean that you weren't enough. Their delayed grief doesn't mean that you imagined it all. You were loved, just not in the way that you needed, and not in a way that could last. Closure in an avoidant relationship doesn't usually come from them. It comes from recognizing the pattern. I've made peace with the fact that I won't get a big emotional goodbye from her. I won't get the words I wanted. But I don't need them anymore because I can see the whole arc clearly. And I can carry the truth. I loved her. And she loved me in her way. And it wasn't enough. And that's okay, because now I found someone who can meet me fully. And that's the difference. If you've been through this, I know how painful it is. And I also know how confusing it is to watch someone pull away when all you wanted was closeness. And you knew deep down inside them they wanted it too. It is literally enough to make you lose your mind. But I promise you, it wasn't because you were unlovable. It's because their way of surviving closeness made it impossible for you to stay. So if you do take anything from this video, let it be this. Don't waste your life waiting for someone else to unlock their love. Live yours fully and find the person who doesn't run when you get close. Because they're out there and they'll change everything.